Yesterday I mentioned that our teacher Shaykh Fawaz, he said to us one day that we were away from lesson yesterday because we went to attend the janazah of one of the colleagues of our teacher Shaykh Abdul Razak Al-Halabi rahmatullah alayhi, whose name was Shaykh Umar Shafiq rahmatullahi alayhi. I didn't ever see him. I didn't ever hear about him until this occasion. But it was a beautiful story that I heard. I will never forget. He said we went to pray the janazah of Shaykh Umar Shafiq rahmatullah alayhi. And he said our teacher Shaykh Abdul Razak Al-Halabi rahmatullah alayhi said to us that one day our teacher, the great Imam Muhammad Salih Farfur radiyallahu anh, took us, i.e. his students, to visit Shaykh Sharif al-Yaqoubi rahmatullahi alayhi. Shaykh Sharif al-Yaqoubi was one of the great awliya of Damascus. He said our teacher Shaykh Muhammad Salih took us to visit him, and we went and we sat in the gathering of the Shaykh, and our teacher Shaykh Salih said to Shaykh Umar Shafiq, who was a beautiful reciter of the Quran, said to him, recite some Quran. As he said this, Shaykh Sharif said to him, hang on for a moment. Hang on for a moment. And he said to all of the attendees of the gathering, أحضروا قلوبكم. He said, make your hearts present. Make your hearts present. Then he said to the reciter, أحضر قلبك ثم اقرأ. Make your heart present and then recite the Quran. Make your heart present and then recite the Quran. And he recited. Our teacher Shaykh Abdul Razak Al-Halabi rahmatullah alayhi, he described that recitation and that gathering, and he said, تِلْكَ كَانَتْ سَاعَةً مِنَ الْآخِرَةِ. That was a moment from the hereafter. That recitation of the Quran and that listening of the recitation of the Quran wasn't from this dunya. It was from the hereafter. It was from the recitations of paradise. When Allah will say to the reciter of the Quran, اقرأ وارتقي ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا. Recite and elevate as you used to recite in the dunya. فَإِنَّ مَنْزِلَتَكَ عِنْدَ آخِرِ آيَةٍ تَقْرَأُهَا. For your station is at the final verse that you recite of the Quran. The heart of the Prophet ﷺ had the Quran al-Kareem in it. Had the Quran al-Kareem in it. For us to resemble his heart, we have to have the Quran in our hearts. Not only upon our tongues, not only coming out from our trumpets, but descending into our hearts. And how can that happen? It can only happen if we recite the Quran the way he used to recite. And how did he recite sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And how did he instruct us to recite? He said, when you recite the Quran, ibku, cry. فَإِن لَمْ تَبْكُوا فَتَبَاكُوا. He said, if you can't cry whilst reciting the Quran, then at least pretend to cry. At least pretend to cry whilst reciting the Quran. And he was described that when he used to recite the Quran, فَإِذَا مَرَّ بِآيَةِ عَذَابٍ إِسْتَعَاذ. If he passed by a verse in which punishment was mentioned, he would seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he passed by a verse where Allah's mercy was mentioned, he would ask and beseech Allah for his mercy. This is how he recited the Quran. What's in our hearts? Is it the Quran or other than that? How can we become like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How can we mirror him and resemble him? By reciting the Quran al-Kareem, by having it in our hearts. One beautiful thing, Shaykh Abdullah Sirajuddin